Awesome. Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome. The workshop this morning today is If You Can't Measure It, You Can't Manage It. And we are lucky to have Seth Clark from Blue Valley Bistro. He has two locations, one in Cresswell and one in Coburg, and I've been very much enjoying having the best coffee and snacks at both of his locations during work hours. So I have to say, if you haven't already been to Blue Valley Bistro, it's a must. I'm going to let him talk more about himself in a few minutes. But I'm going to tell you a little bit more about Oregon Rain and what we do. I'm Ariel Rubin, the Lane County Venture Catalyst for Oregon Rain. I'm also the founder and CEO of Ariel Inc., a marketing firm, and the innovation strategist at my family's company, Hummingbird Wholesale. We're a bulk foods distributor right in Eugene. Today's agenda, we have the presentation that will start shortly in about 5 minutes with Seth, and we'll probably end around 9:45 with Q&A, although you're welcome to ask questions throughout the whole workshop. You're welcome to just put them in the chat or even just unmute yourself. It's a small group today. And then we'll close at 10. Just a reminder, virtual etiquette. Please remain muted throughout this session. Otherwise, there's background noise. And if you have any questions, like I said, you could post them in the chat, or you could even use the raise hand feature and you can unmute yourself and ask. This is a place for fun, learning, and inclusivity. Please be polite, supportive, and positive in conversations and in the chat. This event is being recorded and we'll post it on Facebook and YouTube after the fact, so you're welcome to watch it again or share. Our mission at Oregon Rain, we partner with communities to catalyze entrepreneurial ecosystems, connect entrepreneurs to resources, including overlooked entrepreneurs, and contribute to the creation of prosperous economies. And we like to say we're building infrastructure for startups. So that would include a network of mentors, networking opportunities, workshops such as this one, physical assets like co-working spaces or incubator kitchens, activating capital, news and media, of course, and local government support, as well as a strong workforce. So we sort of help catalyze all of these elements of a thriving entrepreneurial ecosystem. And we know that we can't do this alone, so we catalyze community, of course. So please join in. We would love to hear your ideas if you have any thoughts. Stay connected, especially now. And of course, all are welcome. We're stronger together. And a huge thank you to our partners, mentors, entrepreneurs, and funders. We can't do this without you, of course. This is our team. Many of you may know us already. Caroline Cummings is our executive director, and the rest of us are venture catalysts out in the field. And we also have two new additions to the team, Elaine McMillan and Linda Coulter-Burke. Linda's on the call, and they're entrepreneur in communities, and that's a new position that we're exploring, having someone in a community who's a local entrepreneur to do support, because we know that we can't do everything as coming into your community once or twice a week. So that's pretty exciting. Those ladies are in Florence, but that model is expanding. Just a reminder of what's next. We have Talk with the CEC. So this is where you can actually come and talk to a state senator and share your thoughts about the pandemic and share your needs. All are invited. Climate action in Lane County and emerging opportunities for entrepreneurs. This is sort of a cool opportunity. We have a professor, I think from U of O, sharing his thoughts on climate change and how it relates to small business over time. So that's Thursday, February 25th. So please join. And of course, we have ongoing weekly mentorship for all. So you're welcome to just message me in the chat or let me know if I can help you get connected to anything. That's what I'm here for. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Seth. Again, Seth, I'm super excited to have you today. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here and turn it over to you so that you can introduce yourself.
All right. Well, thank you, Ariel. I'm actually incredibly happy to be here today. I just want to start off with, you guys can see my screen, yeah?
Yes.
I'm a Zoom newbie. I've only been a participant. I've never had powers to control the program. So just Ariel touched a little bit on who I am, but I want to give you kind of a quick rundown. I own Blue Valley Bistro, formerly Cresswell Coffee. We've been in business, well, my wife and I bought the business 10 years ago. So I don't consider myself a financial expert, nor do I consider myself a business expert, but I have somehow managed to survive the last 10 years in an industry that has a 96% failure rate. On top of that, I'm very inquisitive and seek out experts in fields. A couple of years ago, I had this amazing opportunity to listen to, I went to a business seminar, and one of the keynote speakers was a guy by the name of Keith Cunningham, who's out of Texas. Fantastic public speaker, also a wealth of information. If you like what I'm presenting to you today and you want to go to the source of where it came from, he's the man. So you can Google him. I know he's got books for sale. He's got programs. If you're have the bankroll to do that sort of thing, it doesn't come cheap. But what I'm going to do today is kind of give you the Cliff's Note version of what I learned from Keith. I'm going to take some, let's see, let's go figure out how this works. Give me 1 second, guys. I got to figure out how to get my, there we go. Oh, cool. Okay. So what I'm going to first start off with is kind of taking your account statements and breaking them down into a very simplified version. I myself am a numbers person. I crunch numbers all day. That's how I operate my business. And lo and behold, it wasn't until about a year ago that I realized that a lot of small business owners don't actually do that. That came as a surprise to me, and that was just my own ignorance. But my goal today is to take that complex stuff, the stuff that looks like Greek to you, and to put it into very simple terms that kind of maybe help you understand how it all works together and how you can use those statements to identify the financial timeline of your business. We're going to look at a few different ways to view an income statement and some metrics that'll possibly help you understand the ebb and flow of your business. We're going to kind of highlight a few of the key categories on each of those statements, and then use those categories to come up with some equations to measure the financial success of your business. Depending on what you see after you use those equations, we'll talk about some levers that you can pull to have an effect on those trend lines. And then finally, I'm assuming you guys might have some questions about what I'm going to cover. So if there's something pertinent in the moment, you can go ahead and ask it at any time. And if I can answer it, then I will. Otherwise, I'll give you some opportunity at the end to talk about, have any questions. So jumping right into it. This is your first statement. Report card number one, as I like to call it. This is actually called a balance sheet. And on the left-hand side of a balance sheet are things and stuff. Doesn't matter what it is that you sell, doesn't matter what kind of business model you have. Things and stuff go on the left-hand side of a business statement. And because it's a balance sheet, that means the right-hand side has to balance. And it is made up of what you owe versus what you own. So for instance, if you have 100 things and stuff and you possibly owe 80 of it because you financed it and you own 20%, that is what it shapes up to be. The next report card is the one that everybody's familiar with. It's probably one that you get once a year from your CPA. Or if you're like me, you look at these all the time. But this is your income statement. And down there, that little red circle is what everybody's always excited to see, and that is your profit. So the basics of an income statement is you have your revenue or sales or income, and then you subtract out the expenses, and what's left over is profit. So again, you have 50 things and stuff, and it costs you 30 to do it. Your profit is 20. And my question is, if you can see that off to the side, is there any difference between those two businesses? You could argue that there is because one's got 50 and the other one's got 5,000. You could argue that it isn't because the profit for both of those is 20, which leads to the conclusion that profit is a theory. And I'm happy to go into a little bit further detail with that down the road, but right now just keep that in mind. Moving on to the third report card. This is a statement of cash flow. This one's a little tricky for a lot of people. They don't typically see it as often as they see an income statement, but it's really basically very simple. There's three elements of a statement of cash flow: operating, investing, and financing. All three of those can go up or down as you add or subtract things into it. For example, in my business as Blue Valley Bistro, my operating costs and cash have to do with buying product, beans, and selling drinks. Where an investing cash flow is the purchase or selling of my equipment. So this is a $20,000 espresso machine. Perhaps I bought one, or maybe actually last year in 2020, I sold off a couple subsidiaries of my business. So that would detract from the investing. And lastly is financing. Sometimes when you're dealing with big numbers, you can't do it all yourself, so you have to borrow money. And when you borrow money, that section goes up, and when you pay that money back, that section goes down. All of that equals cash. And those three statements work together. And this is the aha moment that I had when I first saw Keith present this information. Those are our three statements. So we have, again, the balance sheet up is at the top, the income statements on the left, and the statement of cash flow is at the right. If you remember that profit of being 20 down there, you'll recognize that the profit on an income statement is what you own on a balance sheet. You'll also recognize that the cash on a statement of cash flow make up all of the things and stuff on the income statement. What we're going to do today is to take that cash and figure out how we got there. I do want to disclose a little bit that not all cash is created equal. What we're really focused on here is operating cash, because if my cash flow is coming from investing or financing, in the case of like a PPP loan or an EIDL loan, you'll recognize that your profit will go up, but that doesn't necessarily mean that your business is actually in good standing. So what we're really trying to do is to increase the cash from the operating side of business. So the complete set of books looks a little something like this. You have to start with the beginning balance sheet. That is the best way this was ever described to me. Had to do with balance sheets are pictures, and income statements and statements of cash flow are movies. So you start off with a picture that tells you where you started, and then you can use the reference, the income statement and the statement of cash flow to see the flow of your business, and you end with a balance statement. And all those together kind of build a map of how your business looks. But that's the bare minimum, and it doesn't do any good to get the numbers but not know some of these other questions. What do the numbers mean? What needs to be measured? How do you measure them? Which of those numbers are important? And how to change the important numbers if you don't like what you see? What levers you use to do that? So another little quote that I heard was, accounting systems like QuickBooks are financial transaction recording tools, not financial optics. And today my goal is to give you a set of optics that'll kind of explain all of this stuff. So what I have presented in front of you is a sample copy of a income statement. I used Excel to create this versus a printed one from QuickBooks, only because it gives me the ability to adjust numbers and to do my own calculations. And there's 4 different optical tools that we can do with an income statement that'll kind of help shed some light on the financial well-being of your business. And the first one is called MTP, which is a multiple time periods. As you'll see, this isn't just for 1 month. I have just a series of 6 months here for the first half of last year. And as Keith Cunningham would say, the trend is your friend. If you look at just January, for instance, that tells me a little bit of a story, but it doesn't tell me the whole story. I don't know if $41,500 on payroll is good or bad. I will figure that out more if I see it compared to other numbers. Which brings us to our second optical tool. This has to do with averages. So in addition to having 6 time periods put together, I also have an average, which is based on perhaps previous years combined, or maybe just an average of the current year. You can do that number however you like. But you'll see that blue column there is my averages. So if my average sales for any given month is 76,000, January I did 75. So hey, I'm right on point. Or February seems to be a banner year or banner month, but it's followed by a couple really horrible months. And if you were to go back to 2020, March is when the proverbial stuff hit the fan. As you can see, it started to wane. Et cetera, et cetera. So those numbers kind of reflect that. That's where having your averages is going to come in. But that's not enough. I think there's more scenarios, more calculations you can do. The next one would be a common number. This is one of my favorites, and I think it's actually probably your best or maybe your second best tool to identifying how well your business is doing. And I broke this up into quarters. So we have the first quarter and the second quarter, and the common number is total sales. So the equation here is essentially the January, February, and March, the sum of those divided by the 3 months. And then each of the following categories is a percentage of those. So in this case, you'll see adjusted total payroll. In the first quarter accounted for 49% of my sales, where the second quarter payroll only accounted for 28% of my sales, which would then have a positive effect on the profit. The fourth measurement tool that I like to use is called a cost per unit. I was introduced, I knew the common number one for many years, and I was just recently learned about cost per unit, but I actually find it really effective. So what you'll notice first here is that I have a little line item, this 24664. In my case, the cost per unit that I like to use has to do with how many transactions we do. So in this case, you would say that the first quarter or those 3 months, we did 24,600 transactions. And in the second quarter, we did 16,509 transactions. So that alone tells me a little bit about my business. Obviously, I'm doing not just the dollar figures going down, but I'm actually seeing less people. But this is where it gets really fascinating, why I like this. If you look at total sales, that first quarter, the average sale, which would be the total sales divided by the common, the 24,664, gives me $9.79 in the first quarter, where in the second quarter it was $11.14. So in this case, you could assume that even though less people are coming through the door, they happen to be spending more. You could also look at some of the other expenses and categories and recognize that, bank charges went down a little bit. Payroll was costing me. It's another way to look at this is in that first quarter, for every $9.79 that I bring in, which would be one transaction, $4.82 of that goes to paying my employees. And everything else is broken up that way too. So the gross profit is $6.55 for that first quarter, and the total expenses for that is $6.02, giving me a net income of 53 cents per $10 that people spend. going on to what I refer to as a scoreboard. This is just another way to look at what we were looking at, but it's actually going back and referencing all three of those income statements. So it's the same 6 months. If you look at revenue, which is sales, and I'm going to go back a screen here. The 75,000 that you see right here, and the 95 is the same as across here. We got 75,000, 97,500. Assets, they came off of my balance sheet. The profit or income came also off of the income statement. So if I go back again, that's this number down here, net income. And then lastly, operating cash flow. As the name suggests, that came from the statement of cash flow. And I put all four of these together because these are the categories in which you're going to use to run some calculations that'll give you trend lines that are very easy to understand and to see whether or not your business is doing good or not. Essentially, we're going to measure how effective management is at acquiring assets and converting those assets to revenue. We're going to calculate how efficient management is at converting those revenues into profits. And we're going to figure out how productive management is at converting profits into cash. So the first one on the scoreboard is going to be effectiveness. And for the effectiveness, it's revenues divided by assets. So on the left-hand side of your screen right here, I just brought in the appropriate set columns and hid the others. Revenues divided by assets in the month of January was 97.4. In February was 103.2, and you can so forth and so forth. So on the right-hand side, it points those six, and then I ran a trend line. As you can see, those 6 months, my business was not very good at, it was not very effective at converting revenues. And what you're really looking for is on a percentage basis, you want effectiveness to be as high as possible, and you want it to be trending up month after month. Keith Cunningham would say, pimping your assets destroys this formula. What that means is when the $1,000 laptop will do the job just fine, but you get sucked into and you buy the $4,000 asset or $4,000 laptop instead. We'll get a little bit more into that in a moment. But moving on to efficiency. Efficiency is profits divided by revenues. So again, we're going to look at the same profit that we looked for in the previous page. We're going to divide it by revenue, and we're going to get the same, we're going to get another trend line. And I just realized that Excel kind of messed up my calculations right here. So these 97.4, 103, and 72 are not accurate. It auto adjusted that for me. But if you do look at the line, this is what it actually came out to. I started out at negative 10% and I jumped up to 25 and then back down to -5 or -4, -5, and then up at the end. So efficiency metrics, we're actually headed in the right direction, or we were in those 6 months. Actually, I'm gonna go back a page. When you work both efficiency and effectiveness together, you dramatically increase the odds of creating a sustainable and profitable business. So if you do your effectiveness times your efficiency, you get a return on your asset, which basically measures how effective and efficient the business assets are being deployed to generate profit. But again, like I said, profit is a theory. So ultimately, that equation isn't going to solve the problem. We're going to go ahead and move to productivity. The ultimate goal is not to generate profit. The ultimate goal is to convert profits into cash flow, because cash can be spent, profits can't. They're just a theory. So if you take operating cash flow and you divide that by profits, you get your productivity. Again, I'm sorry about this third column. It just auto calculated based on however Excel and PowerPoint work together. But again, the trend line is accurate. There's this major dip in the 4th month. That has a lot to do with COVID in this case, and the generating funds from a PPP loan. Because productivity, what we're looking at is operating cash flow, not financing cash flow. So even though my sales were down, I got the funds needed to run the business, but that is a short-term solution. It's not looking at the long-term viability of the business. So in this case, over those course 6 months, again, you can see that the trend line is down, which is a little concerning, but if we want to put all three of those together, effectiveness times efficiency times productivity, you can see a trend line that ultimately tells you the financial well-being of your business. And as you can see, it was a decline from month 1 to month 6 on a trend basis. So the question is, what does that mean? Well, I'm going to steal his book here. It says, to the extent that your assets creep up, you will damage your returns and impair the ratio. To the extent that your expenses are mismanaged or ignored, your profits will diminish or disappear and undermine your financial viability. And to the extent that your operating cash flow is compromised by accounts receivables, inventory, or accounts payables, you will have no cash to pay your bills. So that's what that means, which isn't a good situation to be in. But if you can see it on paper, that means you can manage it. So to win the game, your job as a business owner is to maximize the operating cash flow of your business generates and minimize the amount of assets it takes to do it. The formula for success is that cash flow on a percentage basis must grow faster than profits. Profits on a percentage basis must grow faster than revenue, and revenue on a percentage basis must grow faster than assets. If those three things are happening, those trend lines are going to be going up instead of down. And if they're going down, or you're just not happy with the rate at which they're going up, I'm going to show you how to, or what you can do about it. So as business owners, there are essentially only 5 levers that we can pull. And the first 2, people are pretty familiar with. The first one being you can increase sales. That's the de facto everyone resorts to. Oh, my business isn't doing good. I don't have enough money to pay my bills. I need to sell more. That is a lever, and it's not necessarily a bad one, but don't get sucked into the thought that that's your only plan of action. A really simple counter plan to that would be to spend less. So maybe instead of trying to get more people through my door or to try to increase the amount of ticket sale or ticket volume, I can spend less. I may be overstaffed, or maybe I'm spending too much on tools and supplies, or whatever big categories that you have. The challenge is that a lot of people believe that those are the only 2 levers that you have. You can either increase sales or spend less, but there's actually 3 more that I quickly want to touch base on. The first one is to reduce account receivable days. My particular business, my accounts receivables are 0. People pay and then I give them their drink. But a lot of people, depending on what your type of business is, you might have a huge amount of reduced accounts receivable, or a huge amount of accounts receivables, which is where people owe you money. Maybe you're service oriented and you sent them a bill and it's just taking them a full 30 days to get back to you. And I think if you actually trim off even just a couple of those days, you'll start to see a trend change. Another often overlooked one is reduce inventory days. A lot of people think that buying in volume reduces your expenses because you usually get price breaks. But if you're buying a bunch and it's just sitting on your shelf, that is money that can't be turned into the bank. It's just sitting there. So sometimes buying smaller quantities is a good strategic way to adjust that, and to buy more frequently, and also to turn stuff over. So for instance, in my industry, bottles of wine is a really interesting thing, because you usually have to buy, if you want to get a wholesale price, you're buying cases at a time. But if you're not moving those cases fast enough, they're just there collecting dust, and you might have $1,000 or several $1,000s sitting on a shelf which means you can't take it to the bank. And the last one is to increase accounts payable. Again, this is another one that's often overlooked, but basically, if your terms are net 14 days or 30 days, I recommend trying to extend that out as long as possible without being late. Because if you toe the line and you play the game and you end up being late, then you have fees and penalties, and you have some really angry vendors that maybe don't want to do business with you. That's never a good scenario to be in. But if you have 30 days to pay your bill and you give the full 30 days to pay it, you will definitely see that you'll have more cash flow.
There's a question. Oh, hey, perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, that's it. That was basically what I wanted to talk about. I kind of flew through that really quickly, hoping that maybe we could dive a little bit more in areas in which you might have questions.
Awesome. Hey, Linda, do you want to just unmute and ask your question? Because you put it in the chat.
Sure. I love the spreadsheets, and this is coming from someone who hates spreadsheets. So is this an Excel spreadsheet that you're using, or is it some other software? And if it's Excel, are there pre-existing templates that people are using, or is this something you made up yourself?
Thank you, Linda. I do use this, and I did make it up myself. So that what I showed you guys was a sample based on my real business. I modified a few numbers in there and kind of made things easier to see versus actually showing you. If I showed you what I use in terms of Excel spreadsheets, you would just see, like, your mind would go blank. But basically, I start off with QuickBooks. QuickBooks is an accounting recording tool. So all my transactions, all the money coming in, all the money going out is entered through QuickBooks. But QuickBooks isn't going to give you trend lines. It's not designed to show you in great detail the effect that numbers are having on the overall well-being of your business. So in order to do that, I simply, at the end of the month, when I've reconciled all my accounts, I will print off an income statement and transpose the numbers from QuickBooks to an Excel sheet. And I have a running Excel sheet. I started this about, I think 2018 was the first year that I really started utilizing Excel. And in my business, I wonder, give me a second here. Let's see if I can. I'm just going to see. No, sorry. Okay. I just wanted to see if I had my Excel sheet open at the moment, which I don't. But if we go back to one of these sheets here, let's take this one, for instance. You'll see that at the top here, it goes A, B, C, and then I jump to E. And that's because I have a bunch of hidden stuff in there. But basically, I actually have two locations, as Ariel alluded to. I have one in Crestwell and one in Coburg. So what I like to do is I have my projection, what I think is going to happen in January at both of my locations and in that total. And then I go back and I enter what actually happened in January at both locations and then that total. And then that gives me another optic in which I can compare what my projections are versus the reality. And then I do what's called a revolving, it's like an 18-month sheet. So I've already projected out all of 2021. And as January wrapped up and I started entering my numbers for January of my actuals for 2021, I'm also using the actuals versus the projections to come up with projections for January of 2022. And I will continue that on. So come December, my books for 2022 are essentially laid out for me, and I can make last minute adjustments and have an idea of what the year is going to look like.
You've done an amazing job, because the spreadsheets are really easy to read.
Thank you. And like I said, I'm a numbers junkie. I measure everything. There's a lot of stuff that I measure that I probably waste too much time on because it's not really relevant to actually the success of my business, but it's intriguing to me. So putting together Excel formulas and whatnot and sheets that are easy to see and easy to understand is just, I do that for my own good, but I have actually ventured out and helped a couple of my other entrepreneurial friends who are not so like numbers minded.
You could probably sell these spreadsheets.
Well, let's
Minus
talk
your
afterwards,
data.
because I sell coffee. I don't know anything about selling spreadsheets, but I would not be opposed to providing that services if there's a market for it.
Awesome.
Are there any other questions, or need me to go back and touch up on anything and try to figure out? Again, sorry, go ahead.
It looks like Samantha was asking about the last slide, or one of the last slides, where you talk about the 5 different, measures that you can take. Yeah, 5 levers.
Yeah. So okay. So if we go back to this slide right here, effectiveness, efficiency, and productivity. As you can see, this trend line is trending down. So if I'm evaluating my own business and I see that, I say, I don't like how that looks. What can I do about it? Well, I know that from month 1 to month 2 is actually trending in the right direction. So maybe I'm going to go back and look at January and February and say, what did I do or what happened to me that's going to cause that line to go up? And if I dive a little bit deeper into my numbers, I can usually identify what's either causing that line to go up or causing it to go down in month 3. All the things that potentially cause this line to go up or the line down fall into these 5 levers. So I either increased my sales, I spent less, I collected money faster, I didn't buy as much and turned it over a lot quicker, or I took longer to pay my bills. And if you do this for your own business, if you take these categories again, sorry, let's move up to this one right here. If you pull off a complete set of books out of QuickBooks, which would be a beginning balance sheet, an income statement, a statement of cash flow, and an ending balance sheet, and you look at the revenue, your total assets, the profit or income, and the operating cash flow, and you do the following 3 calculations, you'll be able to determine whether or not your trend line for your business is going up or going down. And if it's going down or stagnant, or maybe it's just not going up as much as you like, you have to go back to these 5 levers and say, okay, what can I do? And if you make adjustments to any of these 5, you will alter the trajectory of those trend lines. Well, cool.
I just wanted to show, I have the book that you actually recommended to me.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah, it's awesome. So I could probably find this on Amazon and put it in the chat so you guys can all see it.
Yeah, I actually, funny enough, I have my copy right here. And I bought that copy for last June, I sold off my drive-through to my manager. And then I bought her a copy of the book and said, read this, it'll do you wonders. Again, Keith Cunningham is fantastic. He actually has a program that will essentially do all of this for you, and it costs you $2,800 a year. So if that's a drop in the bucket for you, I highly recommend Googling Keith Cunningham and buying his program. I, on the other hand, don't have $2,800 to spend annually on a program that I can do in Excel myself. So I just do it. But you could even go to YouTube and Google Keith Cunningham. He's a proficient speaker, great business coach, and I reference his book all the time. I really, really do like what he has to say. And he has a very and vibrant history that'll gives him the expertise to talk about it. So
that's awesome. Thanks. It looks like Christine is asking, when you first purchased your business, what business experience did you have?
Not a lot. I was a barista in college when I was getting a business degree, and I graduated college and got a real job. I wore a suit and tie and worked in a high-rise building in downtown Portland and hated it. And I said, you know, I think I had more fun being a barista. I just want to own my own coffee shop. So uh, it took about from the day to deciding I wanted to own my own coffee shop to actually purchasing the business was about 5 or 6 years. But I bought the business in July of 2010, which we were oddly enough in a recession then as well. And the people I bought it from, they were kind of up against the wall. It was either sell the business or close the doors. And my wife and I were young and dumb, and we didn't have any kids, and we didn't have a house, and we had nothing to lose. And so we just jumped into the deep end. And I knew how to make coffee, and my wife was a massage therapist. And so we had the customer service side of things on lockdown. And with my business degree, I kind of had the basic foundations on how to operate a business. And the rest we've figured out through the School of Hard Knocks. And again, I don't consider myself an expert. I mean, I've managed to stay afloat. I've managed to have, you know, a good reputation around town. But every year I look back and I'm like, I maybe I have imposter syndrome. I'm like, I don't know if we're like real restaurateurs. I don't know, like, how are we not dead in the water yet? Like, but again, it's been 10 years and I've been saying that every year. So apparently we're doing something right. We're figuring out how to navigate choppy waters. And through the help of programs like RAIN, through the help of the Small Business Development Center and my advisor over there, we've managed to grow from a little tiny business that was doing a fraction of the volume that we do now into, at the peak of 2019, I had 4 locations. I have sold off a couple of those now, and I'm down to 2 because I had too many irons in the fire, along with my 4-year-old. I just couldn't handle it. So we had to try to reel in and have a better work-life balance. But here we are.
I just find it hard to find people to, I'm not an experienced business person. I'm a retired social worker. And just trying to get help is killing me. It's like you wait for responses from people. And that's my biggest issue that makes me want to just back out on it, although it's something I've always wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I have a specific place I want to purchase, but it's just so hard to find support. That's what to do it.
Yeah. And, I mean, Ariel could probably answer a lot of those questions for you.
Well, I am trying to work with RAIN. I've been in contact with Linda. I just haven't heard back yet. So I'm just waiting.
Yeah, perfect. I think the RAIN program is fantastic. I've utilized their services on a couple fronts before Ariel invited me to give this presentation. But ultimately, there's a quote from Tony Robbins, says something along the lines of, the answers for your business won't come from the outside, like they have to come from internal. And I think it's just like a certain type of person that has the drive and maybe the risk factor that says, I'm going to get the answers I need to get to do what I want to do.
Oh yeah. Well, trying to do it in a pandemic is like.
Oh, I know. It's no kidding.
I mean, it's been months. I've been emailing, filling out questionnaires. It's been months, but I'm okay because mine has been up for sale for a long time, and they're not going anywhere. So
that's all. I mean, and I'd say
that's fine, but yeah.
We'll just keep at it.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to get that book. That looks like a little
bit more about my story to put things into perspective. Like I said, I was living in Portland working a corporate job, and I knew I wanted to own a coffee shop. In my mind, we were going to own a coffee shop in Lake Tahoe, which was a place I was familiar with because that's where I went to school. And we moved from Portland to Tahoe in August of 2007, right before the economy crashed. And so for 3 years, I was trying to get the financing to buy a business, an existing bakery in Tahoe. And I got enough seed money from friends and family. And I went to a bank and I asked for $250,000 and they just laughed. They're like, we're not giving money to anybody. And so I thought at that point that my business dream was dead. I was like, well, it's clearly not the right time. I'm just going to back shelve this thing. And we decided, my wife and I, that as beautiful as Tahoe was, if we weren't going to be able to start a business there was no sense in living there. And we were going to move back to Oregon. And my father-in-law was freaking out because he's like, you guys have good jobs. Why would you leave where you don't even know what it's like in Oregon. Unemployment's at 10%. And I was like, well, whatever, like, we're just going to do it. And we actually found the business that we own. We found it on Craigslist, and they had just dropped the price because they couldn't get a buyer and they're running out of time. And we negotiated with the owners, and on 3 different occasions over the course of 2 months, we thought that a sale had gone through to a different buyer. And all three times they fell through. And literally, this is the craziest story. It was the 11th hour, and they were supposed to close the next day. And I get this phone call. I was driving from Phoenix, Arizona to Las Vegas. I was literally in the middle of the desert, and I get this phone call. I don't even know how I got cell reception. And the owner of then was Cresswell Coffee says the sale fell through. If you're still interested, I'll accept your terms. And then I lost service. So then I had to sit and like let my mind race for about 2 hours till I got to Las Vegas, and I called him back and I was like, yes, I will be home tomorrow. I will I'll run some numbers and I'll give you a call. And then we literally moved from Tahoe to Oregon on June 29th, signed papers July 2nd, and started owning it on July 5th. I mean, so it was, I went from thinking like, there's no way I'm going to have to go to Oregon and pump gas for a living to, wow, I own a business in less than a week. So don't give up. I mean, if you have a vision or a drive and you think that you want to, do what it takes to be a business owner, then that's where it comes from. It's got to come from within. So more power to you.
Super inspiring story, Seth. Thank you. Anyone else have any other questions? That was a lot of dense information. And just a reminder, this is being recorded, so I'll email all of you. And Seth, if it's okay, if you could send me the PDF of these slides too, then I can send them on.
Yeah, I'll send the PDF to you. I'm gonna maybe make a couple adjustments so that the percentages on these slides match up with the trend line. I don't know what went there, but I wanna make sure that that's right, and then I'll get them over to you. Also, right here on this slide is my email address or my cell phone number. If you really are interested in this stuff and you have a question, give me a call or shoot me an email, and I can try to walk through stuff with you. Or if you're saying, hey, you can make $1 million doing this, well, then let's talk about that too. So either way.
Nice. So. Sweet.
Thank you guys. Thank you, Ariel, for the opportunity. I hope I didn't waste your guys' time, and that maybe you can get a little bit of this stuff and kind of figure out the financial well-being of your own business. Good luck.
Sweet. Awesome. Seth, if you want to stop sharing your screen, I'll reshare mine. I just want to share again the upcoming events. I forgot to mention we have actually an accelerator program that I think would be really useful for all of you. It's a 12-week moneymaker accelerator. So let me show you guys these things. Okay, so yeah, just a reminder, on the 24th at 10 a.m. we have talking with SEC. The CEC, and that is, I'll just read the description. Join in a conversation with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, which regulates how businesses raise money from investors, to learn how to navigate your options. So this will be super interesting if you all are looking to raise money. And again, the Climate Action in Lane County and Emerging Opportunities for Entrepreneurship course is on Thursday, February 25th at 3 p.m. Please join. And then this is what I wanted to share with you all. We have a 12-week moneymaker accelerator. And this is a 3-month deep dive into basically everything that Seth was mentioning today. So It'll be a 3-month intensive focused on money, and we'll have incredible speakers who will also be offering mentorship opportunities, and it's totally free. It's every Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. Starting March 31st and going through June 30th. And we'll have various prizes and, you know, big graduation ceremony on June 30th. And it's a really awesome experience to go through a program like this with a cohort. So I certainly recommend you all join and sign up. You can find that on our website, and I put the link in the chat as well. So with that, I'll just say, I will email you all who are on this call the slides and the recording. And great to see you. Thanks for joining. Email me if you have any questions.
Thank you, Ariel.
Yeah, thanks, Seth. That was awesome.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Take care.